So just before we start, I'll just explain a little bit about this webinar today and what you can expect. So my name is Rebecca and I work in the International Marketing and Recruitment team, and I'm the host of the webinar today. And as you can see, we're joined by some of our lovely current students, and I will introduce them all later when we get to that part of the session. But first, I'm going to start with a short presentation just to kind of introduce the topic of student life and get us starting to think about that. While you listen to this presentation, which will take around 15 minutes, you are very welcome to start asking questions in the Q&A, which we will then direct to our student guests today. Now, the topic of the webinar today is focused on student life, and we have the advantage of having all these lovely guests with us. So we would really like to ask you to focus on the topic of student experience, student life, and the kinds of things which you want to know from people with real life experience of studying at Lund. So please do feel free to ask any questions that you have on those topics. Maybe it could be about the weather, maybe it could be about what it's like in the classroom, the facilities, how it is living with other students, or what it's like commuting. It could be anything really where you want to hear from real students about their lives here at Lund. So that's what we're hoping you will ask about, and please do also feel free to upvote other students' questions also if they ask something that you would like to know about. So that's what we will, and any questions that aren't really to do with student life, we won't be dealing with in this session, but of course you're always welcome to contact us, and I will leave a contact form here in the chat in case you have any questions that aren't to do with student life. So I'll just leave that there for you now. Okay, I will now start the presentation, and then we will come back to the actual Q&A part of the session. So here we go. Hopefully now everybody can see the PowerPoint. So just to start off with, again, as we mentioned, we have this presentation should take about 15 minutes, and it's going to cover a little bit about student life at Lund, sports and exercise, cultural activities, the outdoors and nature, city life in Skåne, which is the region that we're in, and then we'll have our Q&A. So starting off with student life. Now, one of the things that we really want to mention that is quite unique in Sweden is that at Lund we have 13 student nations, and these are large student-run social clubs. Sometimes I like to kind of compare it to a Hogwarts house, but I know that that's not necessarily how they are. But they're essentially clubs where you can have activities with other students, such as lunches, brunches. There's often a pub element, nightclubs, sports, social events, and more. And I'm sure that some of our guests today will tell you more about that later. It's easy to join, and once you join, you can attend events at any nation. And they each have their own building located around the city. Becoming active in a nation is a really good way to start making those social connections. Then we also have student unions, and this is something that we're actually very proud of at Lund. We recently were awarded a very high score with QS for our governance, and this is because we have a lot of student voice within the work that we do at the university. We have 8 student unions, 1 per faculty, and the unions represent students in decision and policy-making boards that concern education, and this is at every level, so from the very top level. So they get involved with welcome events, career fairs, and also they host some really lovely balls as well. We also have the Academic Society, which is an organisation run by and for students. And they host a whole load of different kinds of activities, debates, interviews. They have a very good radio station. They have student theatre, art exhibitions, cultural events. They also have a building with a study space and cafe. And we also have Student Lund, which is 1 membership, 1 student life. And joining Student Lund gives you access to all of these things that we just mentioned, student nations, unions, and academic society. And within this, there are so many clubs and different kinds of groups as well that are run by the students. Too many to list, to be honest, but we can say for sure that no matter what your interest is, there will be something relating to that for you. as we can see here, nearly 100 student organizations to join and make friends while engaging in activities that you like. So at the orientation program, we actually have a student association fair where you can meet some of these clubs and societies, essentially. Okay, so moving on to sports and exercise. This is something that's really a part of Swedish life. I would say that it's interesting because in many countries, then sports and exercise are maybe something which is organized externally. But in Sweden, I feel like it's part of people's everyday life. Oh, sorry, something just happened here with the PowerPoint. Can you still see it or not? Now? Yeah? Okay, sorry. So there is a lot of, I would say most Swedish people I know are involved in some kind of sport and exercise. And there are many opportunities, therefore, to keep fit and participate in sports around Lund. Student nations, student associations, local sports clubs, and community sports facilities all offer opportunities to get involved with sport. And there are many indoor and outdoor gyms around the city. We also have lots of cultural activities. This is a beautiful photo here of one of our art galleries. The student associations organize groups for music, choir, drama, specs, comedy theatre, which is quite unique also. I think the closest thing that I can compare that to is, because I'm from the UK, we have something called pantomime, which is like more interactive theatre, and specs is kind of similar to that. It's very fun. And also political events as well. In Lund, Helsingborg, and Malmö, you can also find local museums, music venues, cinemas, art galleries, and theatres. For example, the Skissernas Museum of Sketches is actually on the campus at Lund, and it's really cool because it's very unique. There's not really another museum that looks at the process of drawing. So, and we also have Kulturen, which is a wonderful museum right by where my office is actually, which has a lot of Swedish history as well. Okay, outdoor activities. Not really something that we want to do right now because it's snowing, but in the summer, then definitely, or in the spring, then definitely you're going to enjoy a number of jogging and cycling tracks, attractive city parks. The botanical gardens are really beautiful nearby to the campus. Also some lovely beaches in Malmö, Lomma, and Helsingborg. Some national parks, one of them is shown here on the right-hand side, and opportunities for hiking, diving, and rock climbing. Now onto city life. So as we mentioned already, we have 3 campuses in Lund, Malmö, and Helsingborg. So we're going to highlight a couple of these here as well. Even if you are actually based on the Lund campus, I definitely would recommend checking out these other cities also, because 10 minutes away by train is Malmö, which is Sweden's 3rd largest city. It has a great selection of independent restaurants, lots of shopping opportunities. I really like it a lot. 30 minutes by train is Helsingborg, which is Sweden's fastest growing city. It's lovely. It's right by the sea, and I always really enjoy spending some time there. You can even go across by ferry to Denmark from Helsingborg. And then 40 minutes by train is Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark, which is also a wonderful place to explore. Okay, that was very fast, but I think it just gets you starting to think about these areas. And I'm sure that you all have lots more questions that you would like to ask. So I will stop this sharing of the PowerPoint now, and I will ask our students to introduce themselves. And I would like to ask them to please introduce themselves, tell us where you are from and what you're studying here at Lund. So I will go around. I will start with Arij, then Megan, then Barbara, then Dicky. So Arij, please let me start with you.
Welcome everyone. Hello, my name is Aish. I'm from Jordan. I'm currently at my 1st year studying Masters of Logistics and Supply Chain Management. It's part of LTH, the engineering faculty here in Lund University.
Hey everyone, my name is Meg or Megan. I'm from Seattle, Washington, USA, and I'm currently studying my 1st year in a Master's of Applied Cultural Analysis.
Hello everyone, I'm Barbara. I'm from Slovakia and I'm in my second year of Masters in Media and Communication Studies.
Hi everyone, my name is Dicky and I'm from Indonesia. I'm a second year master student in global studies at Lund University, and currently I'm doing my internship at a small NGO called Cares, which focuses on social integrations in Lund.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. I can see we already have some questions here in the chat, which is great. So I'm going to start with that straight away. So the first question is about the average living costs, especially rent and food. And I can actually give the sort of standard answer here, and then maybe I'll ask our students how they found it with the living costs. So the standard answer is that you should expect to spend around 950 euro or 9,500 krona per month. And about half of that at least will be on your rent, probably a bit more. And I can share with you a link where we have some information here about like living costs, including a standard budget. I'll put that in the chat for everybody. But I would really love to know from our students here whether they have found that this is accurate, whether maybe you can get by on a bit less, or whether you have any tips or tricks for saving money. So I think I will start with Arij. Would you like to speak on this?
Yeah, for sure. Funny enough, because 1 week ago, I wrote a blog related to how can you do grocery shopping with a budget. And I recommend everyone to visit the Unibody app and try to read into the blogs because it includes a lot of student experience and a lot of short cuts and tips. Now, answering your question, I think it really depends on your lifestyle because the first time I came here to Sweden, I was not so much used to how to eat and where to buy my stuff and so on. But then when I figured that out, I started eating, and it helped a lot with the budget related to the food because if you eat out all the time, it's much more expensive. I learned how to cook, and I learned where to get my groceries from. So I would recommend that you need to look into the habits that can help you to be within a budget. And one of the amazing things here in Lund that it's a student city, so you will find a lot of discounts and applications help you to find discounts related to students. So you need to be updated on those as well, and these will help you to be within the budget as well. Yeah, I found the link that you shared very helpful when I came here because it gave me an estimate of how would I manage my budget because I was within a limited budget. So it set the control points.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So the next question we have here is, how easy or difficult is it to work during studies, which I guess is quite related in a way because it's also people thinking about maybe earning a little extra money to help them with these living costs. Now, it's a bit tricky, I think, to answer this question. I know that I asked earlier, and I don't think anybody is doing some part-time work alongside their studies. But if anyone would like to answer, please feel free to put up your hand and talk about it a little bit about the balance. But I can actually also say from my own experience, because I was a master's student at Lund and I actually did work part-time alongside my studies. So I can say that there are a couple of things to bear in mind. One of them is that, of course, you're competing for jobs with a lot of other students. So you have to be aware that it can be difficult to find a job. It is possible, but it's not guaranteed because you have to compete, for those few student jobs that there are. The other thing to note is that I was actually doing some babysitting, some waitressing, and also I was lucky enough to get a job in the international office here at the university. But that's because I already had worked for like 6 years in international student work in the UK. So I was very in a good position, and then a job happened to be available, which isn't always the case. And I was doing that alongside my studies. So I was working around, I would say, maximum of around 13 hours a week, 12 or 13 hours a week. And actually that was enough alongside my studies. It was I don't think I could have done more than about 15 or 16 hours a week alongside my studies without sacrificing my ability to focus on my academics. So that's the other thing to bear in mind, is that you have to think that your academic program is full-time. But would anyone like to add anything to that, or any thoughts about this, like ways to... Not at this point? No, that's fine. Okay, so let's see, we have some other questions here. Okay, Finn has asked, I see that everybody here is a master's student. Will this cover life for bachelor students? Well, actually, Finn, like, we don't have so many bachelor's programs. We only have around 9 bachelor's programs. So we have a lot more masters, and therefore a lot more ambassadors that represent master's programs. However, I'm sure that many of the experiences that our students here in this room have will be relevant and valid for bachelor's students too. So hopefully you'll still gain something from this. Okay, now we've got a question about public transportation. Does anybody in the room regularly use buses and things? Okay, let's start with Megan. Do you want to answer this? How is the public transportation in Lund?
I can really only compare it to the States, and Lund's public transport is amazing. It is almost always on time, and if it's late, it's maybe like 2 or 3 minutes late, which when I was living in Spain, late meant like 30 minutes late. So the buses themselves are very useful. It's about 500 kroner a month if you want to get a pass for Lund C. So if you want to get all of the buses around the city, you can ride them unlimited. And outside of that, we also have a really amazing train system that connects through Lund as well. So you can hit 10 minutes to Malmo, you can get to Helsingborg. As Rebecca mentioned, you can get to Copenhagen. Part of my program is in Copenhagen. So every other week, I'm taking the train over there. So it is very reliable. When I was doing one of these webinars last year before I came, they basically said, do not get a car. You don't need a car. Most Swedes don't have a car. You can get pretty much everywhere by bike or bus. So very reliable. Almost everybody I know uses it, especially now that it's snowing.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, we have another question here about linking up with students who can support other students. All of our guests here today are on our Unibuddy platform, so they all are actually available to chat to. I did share in the chat the link to Unibuddy also, and we try to have at least one representative from every program if possible, as well as from a range of different nationalities, so that you can talk to somebody who maybe had the same experience as you. So that's one place you can go. But there's also a joined question here about connecting with academic advisors or support for academics. Has anybody experienced this in the room today and wants to speak about it? Yeah, Megan, you're nodding.
Yeah, so I think it depends on your program, but for mine specifically, we actually have a meeting once a week. I saw you mentioned other students as well. We get to meet with a second-year student who's in our program, who kind of leads us through what we're going through that week, what we should expect, maybe what questions to ask the professors. On top of that, each program does have a coordinator as well. So before I came, I was in really close contact with Eleonora, who's the coordinator for the Master in Applied Cultural Analysis program, just to ask some questions about the pre-work and things like that. On top of that, speaking for my professors, they're all very, very open and happy to meet for office hours as well. So if you feel like you're struggling with something, or you'd like to just talk to them about the program or about maybe what you plan to do after the program, sending an email and saying, hey, this is when I'm free, would it be possible to meet up? They're always super happy and excited to give you an hour or two and talk through things.
That's great. Thank you so much, Megan. So we have a question here, and it's actually 2 questions. The first question is about experiencing an internship in Sweden after the semester as an exchange student. Now that's a kind of interesting one, because I don't think we can speak so much about exchange. I don't know if anyone in this group has been here on exchange. No, okay, but I know that Dicky, you are, oh, Barbara, okay, so okay, so maybe we can go to both Barbara and Dicky here, because Barbara, maybe you can speak a little bit about the exchange opportunities and what you've experienced when you've been on exchange to Sweden. And then Dicky, if you could maybe speak a little bit about the experience of being on an internship in Sweden. And there's also a second question here, which is, as an Asian, I'm worried because the culture of Sweden and Asia is very different. But if I'm there as an Asian, I would like to ask, how did you do your school life and adjusted? So I guess this is specifically saying that it's for Asian students, but I think any of you can actually speak to the adjustment as well of being from one country and coming to another. So Barbara and Dicky, if you would each like to speak on both of those topics, that's absolutely fine. So about for Barbara, exchange and also adjusting to a new culture, and Dicky also for internship and adjusting to a new culture. Thank you so much. So we start with Barbara.
Nice. So before this master program, I already, excuse me, I did another master program here at Lund University. It was a one-year master program at the economics faculty. And after this one-year program, they offer what they call international master class, which is basically an exchange semester abroad. And you do that after you graduate. And I was in Germany this way. And it was basically very similar to an Erasmus exchange program. So it was a very standard procedure, but I think it was really enriching experience, especially when you just do a one-year master program. It really gives you a larger basis of knowledge from your master studies. I don't know if there is anything more specific that I should say about it, but there are definitely options like this. And if you do a 2-year master program, like I'm doing right now, you do have an option usually to do an exchange on your 3rd semester. And it covers European countries as well as non-European countries all over the world. Usually there is, I think, an option on every continent, I would say. And when it comes to cultural adjustments, like maybe it's hard for me to say, because when I first came here it was COVID, so things were different even from how they are now, and for me as a European, maybe it's not gonna be, or maybe it wasn't such a huge difference as for somebody who is from a different continent. But I think what struck me the most was how nice everybody generally is to each other. And most people just seem very chill about their life, in the, like, outside at least. Nobody's really stressed outwardly or anything like that. So I think it's very nice, just a nice place to be here. And that might not necessarily be the case everywhere. So I would say this is a very positive culture shock, actually. And I don't think it's that hard to adjust. Maybe if you come from a country like me and the food is very different, but I think especially Asian countries have even like specialized stores where you can find a lot of things. Once I visited a shop like that, and most of the stuff I didn't even recognize. So I think as an Asian student specifically, there should be options to feel more at home here. So that's my perspective.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, I also noticed this like lack of drama is what I would always call it. Like there's just no drama here. Like everybody's just living their lives. And it was quite a surprise to me, even just coming from the UK. So, okay, Dicky, can I ask you to please
Yes,
speak about this now?
regarding the internship. So as a master student in global studies, like Barbara also, so in the 3rd semester, we have opportunity to choose elective courses, engage in field work, opt for internship, or explore exchange study opportunities. And for myself, I'm doing my internship. I got the internship actually from LinkedIn. So I was checking through LinkedIn, and then there was like a small NGO in Lund called Accommodation. And this organization is one of the largest basketball association in southern Sweden, actually. And they have like a social sustainability program known as EOS Cares. So yeah, basically, as part of my daily responsibility, I'm actively engaged in the EOS Social Hub program, which has strong focus on promoting diversity and support for international students, expats, and other immigrants in Lund. And yeah, I suggest you, if you want to look for like internship opportunity, it's quite easy to find it on LinkedIn, because a lot of organizations, not only in Lund, but basically also in Copenhagen, because we live quite closely with Copenhagen, which is a big city in Denmark, right? And regarding about the cultural adjustment as Asian, I mean, I'm Asian also. I'm coming from Indonesia, which is like 16 hours more flight from Indonesia to here. So it's huge different. But don't worry, we have our support system. We have association called East Asia Students Associations. So I'm part of that association. So basically, we usually like cook Asian foods together, explore Skåne area together, or Skåne nature together, and then we do yoga or sport together. So if you miss to meet your Asian fellows here, we are here for you to support you. And yeah, so don't worry. And we have a lot of Asian stores, as Barbara mentioned also. We have in Lund, it's called Lokchan, and there are some multiple Asian restaurants and stores also in Malmö, in Lund, or around the cities. Yeah.
Great, thank you both so much. Okay, we have another question here. Can international students fly back to their country after a semester, or can they remain in Sweden to work during the holidays? Now, I think the general picture is either is okay, but I know that for some students, when they're renewing their residence permit, sometimes that means that they have to stay. So that's just something to be aware of. Did anyone want to add anything about remaining in Sweden in the holidays, for example? No, okay, that's fine. The next question is actually about housing. So how easy is it to find accommodation in Lund? And does Lund offer university housing? Now, I think perhaps what we should do is maybe we should have a EU and non-EU perspective on this, because they're a bit different depending. So perhaps, Arij, I could ask you to speak about your experience with housing as a non-EU student,
Yeah,
and
for
then maybe
sure.
Barbara.
So I'm from Jordan, so I'm considered international student with the fee paying. So when you are an international student with that, you need to pay the fees for the university. Actually, Lund offer you being part of all your accommodation with a housing guarantee. So this is what I was counting on, because it was a lot of stress, like thinking about other alternatives. So what I did is using my housing guarantee. So now I'm living in one of the accommodation that is handled by LU Accommodation, which is Lund University accommodation office. However, mentioning that there are a lot of other platforms as well that you can apply on. That could be like more affordable, or you can look into the prices and compare, the association. They have like a queue that you can apply in a different application and check that. And there are a lot of platforms as well that you can find in the university website where you can apply for an application as well and go inside the queue. The only problem is sometimes the queue is very large. So this is why I basically leaned into getting my housing guarantee from the LU Accommodation.
Great. And have you enjoyed living in university accommodation so far? How's it been?
To be honest, it's a great experience because they are very helpful. You can easily access the office to it's here near the campus, so it's very accessible. This is one. Two, the online application and platform. You can ask for any help using the email or the platform, and they answer you. Like for my experience, they say it's 3 days, but usually it's the next day that they answer all your questions and help you to solve any problem. So it was a positive experience for sure.
Wonderful, great. And Barbara, how was the experience for you?
Well, I have lived in 3 different types of accommodation so far. You can, as a European, you don't have any guarantee, so you are on your own. Luckily, there is this organization which is called AF Bostäder. Maybe I haven't pronounced it right, I don't know. But it's, I think, the largest or one of the largest accommodation providers in Lund. They have thousands of rooms, and it's a very standard way to live. As a new student, you can sort of compete for new rooms. So you are little bit in an advantage, and I highly recommend to look into that, because many students find accommodation that way. Maybe most students that I know who are European. Then you can, of course, look for private rooms, which is also one of the ways that I lived. You can go to Facebook groups, or there is also Bopulen, a website. I think all of this is also on the Lund University website. And you just have to be lucky. My tip would be to not write a very generic kind of ad about yourself, like I'm looking for a room. You know, thousands of people are looking for a room. So I tried to kind of sell myself a little bit, and I wrote, "Hi, my future landlord," you know, and stuff like that. You have to do stuff like that, because the competition for housing is tough here, which leads me back to, if you have a housing guarantee, use it, because you can always, you know, find a different place if you're not happy later on. But I know a couple of people who didn't manage to find a housing before the program started, and that's a situation that you don't want to get into. So just take whatever is acceptable for you, and you can always change later. And finally, there's also the option of living at the student nations that we mentioned before. That usually goes to people who are active at the nations, but there are also nations who don't really require that, and their queue time is not that long. For example, the Kalmar Nation and Smålands, they both, I know people who lived there despite not really being active in the nations. So there are many options, but you have to really be active and don't be very picky, at least from the beginning. So that would be my, that would be.
Great tips. Yeah, thank you so much. And Arij, I see that you raised your hand.
Yeah, for sure. It just came to my mind 2 points. Like Barbara talked about Facebook. I just need to warn you people to be careful with the scammers, because sometimes it's a bit tricky. Adding to that, I can add 2 points. The university introduced a new app called Join for us last semester. I know a lot of people were able to join that app as a student and search for accommodation through that app as well, using different groups. And finally, if you reach to a point where you cannot find accommodation here in Lund, think about alternatives. Like Malmo is very near. I know a lot of students who were in a situation that they couldn't find any accommodation in Lund. So they searched for in Malmo, and that helped a lot, because Malmo is very near here and the train is convenient, so it's not that far from the campus. And I heard a lot of students as well search for alternative in Helsingborg as well.
Exactly. And then, as Barbara said, once you're here, it becomes a lot easier if you then want to find something else. So that's okay. Oh, Barbara, you had something else to add?
Yes, I just wanted to add that if you really don't manage to find anything here, you can also, or in Malmo, you can also look in like the nearby little towns and villages, because as was already said, the public transport is quite good. So you should be fine even, commuting from the nearby villages.
Yeah, great tip.
Also
I know a
lot
couple of people who lived in
Exactly.
Esler or, one of the smaller villages. So brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, the next question is really nice. How do you celebrate Walpurgis night, which we call Valborg or Valborg in Lund? Have any of you been to the Valborg celebrations? No? Yes, Barbara? Okay. Would you like to say a little bit about what that involves? Because it's quite unique and very unusual, I think, for some people, because it's a festival. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about what it is.
Well, I have only been to the daytime part of it, which is not even the most important part of it, because the most important part of it is that people gather around in the city park, and they basically put on a huge bonfire. And but what the students like to do is that they gather in the city park from very early in the morning, sometimes even 6 a.m. And at some point in the early morning, there starts live music, or I don't know if it's live music, but like the whole park is filled with students and young people from early morning. Everybody's having good time, partying. And if you decide to join this part, I really recommend coming in early, because I decided to sleep in and I came in around noon, and everybody was like, it's better to come early, because then you come into party that is like in full-blown party, and you don't even know where to put your things. There's nowhere to step in there. It's like it's packed with people. So it's a very unique experience here in Lund. And then the whole park is cleaned out, and it's prepared for the night ceremony of the bonfire. But yeah, the day thing, even if you're not a party person, I recommend just going to the park and seeing what's going on, because it's very unique and a very fun experience to watch all the people having a good time. So yeah, it's very, very unique.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the things I love about Sweden is these celebrations that happen through the year, because due to the history of Sweden and the old beliefs that were here a long, long time ago, then it's really nice because it goes with the calendar of the year. So for anybody who isn't familiar listening, we have various celebrations through the year. One of them is Valborg, Walpurgis Night, and that is usually the end of the winter. So the idea is that the bonfire burns away the very last of the snow and the ice and the the end of the winter, and then we're into the proper spring. And then, of course, during the summer, we have midsummer, which, as its name suggests, is in the middle of the summer. And that's like the longest night of the year, longest day of the year, sorry. So the most light. It almost feels to me like you hardly even have a nighttime that night, because it's like so short. And everybody has a very nice time. There's a big pole where you like dance around and sing songs, and it's very fun. And then in the autumn, a bit of a less well-known one is the Alla Helgonas, which is All Saints, and it has a relationship to Halloween, but it's not the same as Halloween. And that's when everybody goes to the cemeteries and honors their ancestors by lighting candles. So you can see that through. And for me, that's the start of the winter. That's when, okay, now it's time to hibernate a little bit. So I actually really appreciate this, because I come from the UK, where our festivals are not so clearly linked to nature and to the natural patterns of the year. And for me, this is really nice. It kind of helps me understand where we are, where I should be in my energy during the year. So anyway, that's just a little personal feeling about this. Okay, we have a question here actually from somebody else from Indonesia. So that might be something that I asked you about, Dicky. But this student says, hi, I'm from Indonesia. I wonder, how is Muslim life around Lund University? Is it easy to get halal food? How is Ramadan? Does the community and university provide gathering for iftar together? I know that, Dicky, you're involved with the Muslim community in Lund, and I think you as well, Arij. So maybe each of you wishes to say something about this. We can start with you, Dicky, and then Arij.
Yes, sure. Yeah, it's quite easy to find halal food in Lund. Actually, there are several stores that sells halal meat, and even at Willis also, or Ika, the normal supermarket here, there are some halal meat or halal kebab also. And if you want to find restaurants, there are some restaurants offered by Middle Eastern restaurants. So yeah, it's quite easy to find halal food. And during Ramadan also, for fasting, this year actually was my first time to have fasting in Europe. It's quite long actually, rather than in Indonesia. Yeah, so we don't eat and drink almost like 16 hours during the day, so it's pretty hard. But don't worry, in our associations, in Indonesian Students Association, we usually have an event like breakfasting or iftar together. We cook together and then recite Quran together. And there's also a community called Lund University Muslim Student Community, or LUMS. And yes, that community offer to breakfasting together or iftar together and pray together. There are several mosques or places that you can pray. And that community actually really helped us to find those places to pray. Yeah, maybe Eris can add this.
Yeah, as Dicky said, I totally understand your concern. It was part of my concerns as well before coming here. Um, uh, Talking about halal food, the community that Dicky mentioned, the LEUMS, actually has a halal meat map, sorry. So they mapped all the halal restaurants. So once you are here, you can just open the map and go through the city visiting all these restaurants. That as well, that there are some well-known brands that has halal food as well. So food is not a problem at all. Let's say you didn't find halal option. What is amazing about being here in Sweden is that you always have a vegetarian alternative as well. And sometimes the vegetarian dishes are more amazing than the regular dishes. So each time I go somewhere, a little bit concerned, I just go for the vegetarian option, and it never disappoints. Related to the priors, as Dicky said, there are a lot of actual rooms in the campus. It's called reflection rooms. You can search for that on the university website, and they will give you the exact location and the room number, and you can do your priors. There are several rooms around the campus. So that's amazing. And one tab related to the prayer times as well. We have the Lund Mosque, and they have a website with all the prayer times as well. So I would say it's very Muslim friendly, and you will not feel alone because it's a huge community here as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, we haven't heard from you in a while, Megan, and we have a question here about the difference between the 13 nations. Is there anything important to note about picking one? Now, I know many of you are actually involved in nations, but maybe I know that Megan and Barbara, you're also quite heavily involved with the nation as well. So maybe each of you can say a little about your experience with the nations. We can start with Megan.
I will say before I came, I was so stressed out about which nation to choose. And my biggest piece of advice is that it really, in the end, doesn't matter. You can go to all of the events for any of the nations as long as you're part of Student Lund. You can volunteer with any of the nations, even if it's not the one that you've chosen as your own. So don't stress out about it too much. I'm part of Västgöta, and the only reason that I chose Västgöta is because they have an American breakfast on Sundays, and I thought that was really funny. So even if you choose a nation for the next semester, you can change. But really, some of them just have different vibes. Like I know Barbara can speak to Kalmar more, but I know it's like got a very international vibe. Some of them tend to have more Swedish students and tend to do things more in Swedish. I specifically wanted to do a nation that whenever they posted on Instagram, did it in English and Swedish. So they reached out to both, international and Swedish students. But really just don't stress over it too much is my biggest piece of advice. But Barbara, I know you're on the board for Kalmar, right? No?
Well, I'm a foreman, which is a different thing, but yeah. So I'm involved in Kalmar Nation, and as Megan said, it's actually the most international, which also shows in the fact that English is the first language in Kalmar Nation. So even when the management team is speaking English to each other all the time, and I think that's really great, even though it's also full of Swedes. And also the first language when we communicate on social media and stuff like that. So what should I say about the nations?
Well, just really, I mean, there was this question about choosing, but also I guess if you want to reflect a little on what maybe you've gained from being involved with it, that would also be helpful for people.
Yeah, so I don't want to be partial, but Kalmar Nation actually is the most international. So
I was in Kalmar as well, so
so just letting you know. And I think that it's really an enriching experience because it makes you able to experience something else besides your studies as well, and it's a good feeling to get involved. And even though I'm just doing the PR, which there are also foremen who have to spend more time in the nation than me, I think it's very, very rewarding. It gives you a good feeling that you helped something that excuse me, that makes the student life for thousands of people so much nicer. And I think it's a good feeling to get involved. And of course, you meet a lot of new people, and it's a lot of fun, especially if you decide to volunteer, which is a more common way to get involved than being a foreman. Then you just have a lot of fun in the kitchen, just like cooking food for other students, and it's just a very nice experience. Or you can just visit those events, which is the most common way of getting involved. And the food is oftentimes like very tasty, despite the fact that it's just being cooked by volunteers who maybe never cooked in their life before. There is always a foreman who should know what they are doing. So yeah, it's a very affordable way to eat a food that somebody else cooks for you, as opposed to the restaurants, which can be much more expensive. So yeah, I think it's a great experience, and I think you will find this out yourself when you come here, that it's just a huge part of your student life.
Great, thank you. I see that both Dicky and Arij have raised your hand, so maybe we start with Dicky and then Arij.
Yes, the most important that I want to highlight is that you don't need to worry about choosing a nation, because during orientation week, you will get to know more about the nations. I recall during orientation week, Lund University will have like an exhibition where all the nation gathers, allowing us to inquire or asking about the details. And most importantly, also being a member of one nation doesn't restrict you from participating in activities organized by other nations. So you can still join activities from different nations as well.
Thank you. Sorry, and Arij, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that what is amazing about nations is students taking care of students. So it's the highlight of a student life, and it's very inclusive. You will never feel alone, because it's the best way to explore different areas, explore different hobbies, meet people from international backgrounds, be introduced to people from different hobbies and interests, and you can actually explore yourself. And I'm part of Accommodation as well, so I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's created a great shortcut for me from the start to have friends and support system.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And we did have a question about whether all the student nations were located in Lund, or are some of them in Helsingborg and Malmö. And then I actually can't recall whether there's one in Helsingborg or Malmö. Does anyone in the room remember? No, okay. I'm not sure. I'm sorry for the person who asked that, Elias. I'm sorry that I don't think that there are any in Malmö and Helsingborg. However, you can check on each of the pages for the nations to check where they're located. But even if there isn't one in Helsingborg and Malmö, as we've mentioned, both of those towns are actually very close by train. So you are still welcome to be involved and to come into Lund to take part in those activities. Okay, we have a question here about learning Swedish. The question is, can students attend any free Swedish lessons in Lund? So I think they're thinking specifically about the SFE, or the Swedish for immigrants, I guess you can call it, which are free. But did any of you study Swedish? Feel free to raise your hand. Yeah, okay, Megan, would you like to speak a little bit about your experience?
I always like to joke when I'm here that even as a native speaker, the Swedes speak English better than me. So it is not necessary to learn Swedish to live here, but I always recommend learning the basics, the hey, the tack, how's it going? Those go a long way. You don't need Swedish, but if you are interested in learning, there are so many options. So SFE, like Rebecca mentioned, is a course for Swedish for immigrants. I will mention that one is specifically for students who have a personal number. So if your program is at least 2 years, then you will be able to apply for SFI courses. I'm doing that process right now. Otherwise, there are tons of options outside of that. So I do language clubs here. We have a couple pretty big ones. EOS Holland does 1 or 2 every week. That's open to the whole community. And then we also have at the Soul, which is the language area on campus, Soul Cafe does Wednesday night language exchanges as well. So that's great, because not only can you learn Swedish and practice with Swedes, but then you can also exchange your language as well. So I studied French and Spanish, so I go, teach a little bit of Spanish, and then we switch over and then I get to practice my Swedish as well. So lots and lots of opportunities outside of the SFI courses if you do want to learn Swedish. And I have found that the Swedes, when you try, are very, very sweet and are always happy to practice with you. So I totally recommend it. It really changes the experience if you get to live in the language a little bit.
Brilliant, thank you. And I saw that, Dicky, you put your hand up as well on this one.
Yeah, no, it's just basically same as Megan mentioned. So I enjoy learning new languages, which is why I'm currently taking SFE classes. It's free and it's fun way to learn new language and make new friends. And yeah, I also understand that everyone in Sweden speak excellent English. However, why not learn Swedish too, right? And yeah, if you have limited time, I also suggest attending language cafe a few times a week. Yeah, there are a lot of language cafe as mentioned by Megan at by the university, or again by where I'm interning at EOS Cares. They offer like twice a week at least, and you can also learn other language, not only Swedish. Yeah, there are some like Arabic, French, Spanish.
Brilliant, thanks so much. Now we have an interesting question, and I don't really know whether to ask this one or whether it's a bit weird for you guys to answer. But somebody said, has any one of you ever fallen into a relationship at Lund, and how did you handle it? Now, maybe we can turn this into so that it's not quite so personal for you guys. Maybe we can turn it more into, how do you meet people? How do you make connections? Like, how do you make friends? Because I'm not sure if I would really want to tell everybody about my personal life in that way. But maybe there is an opportunity to talk about how to meet people and how to, you know, like how you can make social connections. Because of course, we've talked about a couple of the ways, nations, language cafes, but there might be some more things that we can also share. Would anybody like to answer this question? Yeah, okay, Megan, go for it.
Thinking about making connections and meeting people, which you never know what can turn out, but it's just as far as making friends, I will say, you know, there's that stereotype that Swedes are very closed off, and that can be true sometimes. It's really hard to, we kind of compare them to coconuts, crack the shell, and then once you get to know them, they're very sweet. But apps are really popular here. So like Bumble BFF, for example, which is the friendship side. I know lots of people who have made friends in Malmo, Helsingborg, and Lund using that. Or Sweden specifically has an app called GoFriendly that you can use that more Swedes tend to populate. So there's definitely those options if you're not the type to just go up and chat with somebody. But I will also say I've had a really great experience getting to know my classmates, and I hang out with them every other day after class. So lots of options there too to get to know people. Other than that, if you're talking about relationship side of things, I think it's pretty standard as everywhere else in the world. You just got to talk to people.
Yeah. Arid, you put up your hand.
Yeah, as Megan mentioned, it's not any different of mingling with people and do the networking and be introduced to different people from different like backgrounds that you share the same interest with. So my way of doing these connections was through volunteering. So I volunteered in a lot of communities that I share the same values and the same interests with. And whenever you hang out around people that share that same background with you, it can develop to something because you know you're sharing the same basics. So I would say like explore the volunteering life here in Lund. It's very rewarding and it could end up with a relationship as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, the stereotype with Swedish friendships is that they usually are built on a common activity or interest, such as like if you have a sport in common or if you have a hobby in common. Like the stereotype is that you start with that and then you go out for coffee instead of like going out for coffee and then doing something like a hike, or you know, it's like the other way around for Swedish people. And I think that stereotype is quite true actually. So great, thank you so much. Okay, the next question is actually this question is partially about the weather, and then the second part is about the technologies used in the Masters of Machine Learning. Unfortunately, we can't talk about that part because we don't have anybody here today who's studying machine learning, but we can certainly talk about the weather. So I wonder whether perhaps those who came from very different climates. I know that my colleague has just returned back from Indonesia, and it was very different there from how it is here in Lund. And I'm assuming that for you, Arij, it was also quite different. I don't know if it was super different for you guys, Barbara and Megan, but maybe we start with Dicky and ask, did you find this a big change with the weather? And how are you coping right now with the snow?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's huge difference between Indonesian weather and also here in Sweden. In Indonesia, it's very tropical, always either it's yeah, hot or very hot, right? But here, yeah, it's quite cold and the darkness as well. I can recall that I encountered a challenge during my first winter last year, until I had to call the student health center, to consult about the coldness and the loneliness here. But yeah, I could survive at least during last winter because yeah, they really helped me. I mean, the student health center. I tried to learn about the mindfulness, about how to connect with other people during winter because yeah, most of people usually have like more lower energy during the winter, and then because it's cold and dark, people don't really go outside. But yeah, just make sure with yourself you stay active. Basically for me, I usually go to the gym and do social workout with other people, so it makes me like yeah, to boost my stamina and my spirit, my energy. So that's one of my ways to encounter the challenge during winter. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I also feel that way as well. Like I definitely have to change my mindset a little and think about this as a time for rest because it's a different kind of feeling than when it's in the summer. And the Swedish summer is just wonderful. So it's like, okay, I can push through this to get to the summer because it's wonderful. And at least we are in the south, so it's not as crazy. I mean, right now we do have snow and we do have minus temperatures, but that is actually not super common. Like it happens for a couple of weeks a year, but it's not like it happens all winter from October to March. Whereas if you're up in the north of Sweden, it actually is like that. So I think it's nice to have the snow occasionally just to brighten things up a little bit. Maybe we can move on actually to another question because we still have lots of questions here in the chat and I don't know if we will get to them all. So the next question is about, are there any LGBTQ plus events or activities on campus or in Lund City? Do any of you have any experience with that you would like to share?
Maybe
Yeah.
I can. Yes.
Okay, wait. I don't know who to go to first. Let's go with Dicky first and then Megan.
Yes. Yeah, last time I joined the Lunda Pride in the town, so that was my first time to join the parade with the LGBTQIA plus community here in town during summer. It's beautiful to celebrate diversity and love. So yeah, it's really beautiful, like people coming from various backgrounds, and then just did parade together, and then yeah, we had parties, singing together, dance together also, and raise the awareness about the inclusivity as well. And then there is a nation called Smaller Nations, which they usually also celebrate diversity, especially for the LGBTQIA plus community. Yep, that's my experience so far.
Great. And Megan?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment about Swedish culture and LGBTQ plus. It is a very welcome and accepting culture, and you can see that even throughout Swedish society. Like a really specific example, I'm sure all of you guys have heard of the Swedish sauna, right? It's a Swedish tradition that everybody must try. There's a really popular one. It's been around for decades called Callus in Malmo. Callus once per month, because the sauna is separated traditionally by men and women. Once per month, Callus has a LGBTQ plus day where you can go to whatever side, doesn't really matter. It's mixed and it's depending on what you're most comfortable with. And I think that is such a great example of how Swedish culture is learning to adapt and be more welcoming toward that community. So if you're worried at all that might be something that you would face problems with, do not worry. Sweden is so accepting.
Yeah, that's a great message. I mean, I think sometimes students are actually quite surprised that quite a lot of the Pride events and things like this are actually run by the Svenska kyrkan, the Swedish church here in Sweden. And that's another example of how open the society is as well, because even at those levels, like across all levels of society, there are like lots of support for diversity and LGBTQ plus. So that's wonderful. Okay, let's have a look. I see we have a couple of questions here, but they're not so focused on student life. Okay, it's kind of related to what we already talked about, but somebody has said, I can't speak Swedish. How can I communicate with local people such as shopping, traveling, and making friends? We've kind of covered the opportunities to learn Swedish, but just in terms of the communication side of things, Arij, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, as Megan said, I have been here since August and I only know English, obviously. And I found no issue at all communicating using English. It might be helpful to be able to know like the basic words for you to be able to manage, for example, the shopping. When you go to a grocery shop, it's not usual that you don't have the English version of it. But what I did as well is having my Google Lens. So whenever I'm there, I'm just using the Google Lens to translate. In terms of communication, almost everyone here in Lund knows how to speak English. But let's say you face the problem of not being able to communicate with English with someone, for instance, I think you can be smart, like use your phone to translate or something, and everyone is very helpful. So you are not judged. And yeah, as Megan said, you can use some applications that can help you to learn just the basics. It's always nice to know the basics like Duolingo and some of the online applications that can help you just to learn the basics like tak tak, these kind of words that will be very helpful to initiate a communication.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, the next question we have here is, what type of student discounts are there? Arij, I think you recently wrote a blog about this, so maybe you can talk about it a little.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, when you apply for a nation, you do a membership, and this membership will grant you a student card. It's actually been accessed through an application, and in that application, you can check a lot of discounts related to students. So whenever you have this card and you can regularly check that app, you can see that a lot of offers are there, and you can utilize them. And you can as well like activate the notifications, so you can classify what kind of notifications you want. Being part of a union as well, have another card called Mason card, if I'm not wrong, pronouncing that. So this card as well has student discounts. However, if you go to any store or shop here in Lund, for example, the transport card that Megan talked about, the monthly one, if you're a student, you are granted a discount. It will also require you to have the membership to the student card that is related to the nation's membership. But as long as you have it, I think even if you go to some of the shops, make sure to always ask if they have student discounts, because some of the shops also have student discounts, and they can grant you that once you show them the student card.
Brilliant, thanks so much. Okay, the next question is, can you talk about support services offered to international students? Now, I know that Dicky, you already mentioned that you had accessed those services. So do you want to speak a little bit about the health center?
Yes, once I experienced the contact with the student health center, that experience actually related because I encountered some challenges during the winter time, right? So I just had a consultation with them, but it was just once actually, but it was really helpful because they gave me awareness about how to be mindful, and then they gave me several tips how to encounter those challenges during the winter, and to make me more aware that it's quite different culture between Sweden and Indonesia, and I have to face it carefully also. So basically they are really helpful, so don't worry to contact them. It's free also. You can just call them or just check info on the website as well.
Brilliant. And Arij, you put your hand up on this one?
Yeah. So during the orientation week, we had a lot of lectures with the academic support center, not only the health center. And to be honest, it has been like a surprise for me to have this kind of support being offered by the university. And you can apply for having a study session or academic advice. They can help you to know how to tackle the academic writing, how to overcome if you're stuck not knowing how to study, how to do the critical thinking. So I appreciate that in Lund University, that it's not only the health, which is a great aspect, but the mental health and your academic health as well. And I recommend everyone to check that in the university website and take advantage of these kind of support centers.
Brilliant. Did any of the others, Barbara or Megan, have anything to add? Okay. So the next question, actually, some of these we've kind of covered, but I think we can maybe like speak a little bit more about it. So this person has asked, how soon do you recommend starting to look for accommodation? And do you think living in Malmö is a good option since it's quite close to Lund? I think we have answered that actually, because the answer is yes, it is a good option, especially if you're struggling to find something in Lund. And also, I would say with the timing, then there is a specific time period to apply for Lund University accommodation, and that's after you've already received your offer of studies. So that's something to be aware of. But obviously, as the others mentioned about the other routes that you can go down, such as private accommodation, you can look for that earlier. But obviously, you shouldn't be signing up for anything until you know that you're coming, and you have to be careful, as Arij mentioned, about, you know, scammers and things like this. So I would advise that most people will start looking in earnest after they receive an offer. But yeah, I don't know if anyone has anything they want to say on that one. But there is another question with this, actually two more. Could you please share more about study spots around the campus, so places to study? And the second one is, would you recommend buying or renting a bike for commuting? I think perhaps Megan, you already kind of spoke a little about this, but yeah, okay, maybe because we haven't heard from Barbara for a little while. Barbara, would you like to share some of your favorite study spots? And also, do you have a bike?
My favorite study spot is my room, so I can speak of that. But yeah, maybe somebody else can speak of that. But I can just say that there are many of them. I studied at the economics faculty and the social science faculty, and both of them just have student places randomly located, also in the hallways, for example. And there are libraries. There are a lot of places to study, but I also think that each person kind of finds their own little place where they feel the best. For example, like for me, it's hard to focus when people are walking around me, so that's why I prefer to study in my room. And what was the other part of the question?
The second part was, would you recommend buying or renting a bike for commuting, and how affordable is it?
So if you buy a cheap bike, then it's worth it to buy a bike. If you buy expensive bike, I'm not sure if it's worth it really, because in the winter you can use it. There are people who use it, but like, you know, it's tricky. So it's actually important to count like how many months are you actually going to be able to use it. But I do have a bike, but you also have to. There are a lot of things to consider. Like there are upsides to both options of like buying a bike or using the public transport, because if you buy a cheap bike, chances are that you're gonna have a lot of like problems with it, and you're gonna have to get it fixed, so that's additional cost. So but yeah, most people have bikes, and I think now that I think about it, I have to recommend buying a bike or getting a cheap bike, because it's about the flexibility as well, and everybody has a bike here. Lund is relatively flat, so it's also quite easy to bike here. So yes, like get a bike, but you might not be able to use it like maybe some months during the winter, and yeah, it's worth it.
There's a really thriving like secondhand market for bikes, and there's some shops where you can go and buy. So then that makes it easy as well to get like a cheaper one, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. Arij, did you want to add something?
Yeah, related to studying areas, especially that a lot of our work in LTH, the engineering faculty, is group work as well, and you will not need that space. I would just say that here in the campus, there are 28 libraries, and the libraries has study rooms, and it's diverse. Maybe you can find a spot where it's very quiet and calm, and it's you individually. And there are other places or rooms where you can book as a group and work for your group work. For example, at LTH we have the study center where there are a lot of space for you to study as an individual, or you can as well study in a group. Moreover, in the building itself, we have rooms where you can book a room. Like I'm now in a room in my building, in the M building in the LTH, and you can book that room and study as long as you want.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, oh, we still have quite a lot of questions. I really hope we can get through some, but we'll just do our best. And if there's anything that we can't get to, then I will encourage everybody here to go to the Unibuddy chat later to ask people the questions. So, but we'll share those links in a minute. Okay, the next question is, how digitalized is Lund University? I'm asking because my school had severe difficulties at the start of lockdown with organizing online classes. Well, I can say that at this point, we don't really have like the standard thing is lessons on campus, but maybe somebody in the room would like to speak about the way that digitalization is used in the classroom. Yeah, Barbara, you're in media and communication, so I imagine that this is something that your classroom should be doing, but what's been your experience?
I don't think that my program is very making it more relevant. I just wanted the reason why I raised my hand was that as I said, my first program, I did the whole program online. I never set foot on campus once during the whole year because it was COVID. It started 2020. And I thought it was managed perfectly. Sometimes I would even maybe go back to it for a couple of weeks so that I can just stay in my warm room and not go out to the cold. No, I'm joking, but yeah, it was managed really, really well. I generally feel like the level of competence when it comes to even like all in my country, there's a stereotype that older people like sometimes have problem with like technology. Here, I never met a teacher, no matter their age or background or anything, who wouldn't be able to manage with technology. So like everything was going smoothly and perfectly. So God forbid, but if there ever is like a reason to go to any online teaching, I think it's absolutely fine. And there are even online courses still now. I think maybe some courses that are taught in Helsingborg, they make them online so that people can join easily. I know a friend who did a course like that. So it really is not a problem. There are usually Zoom lectures, and in my faculties that I've studied, most of the assignments are just submitting a paper, which you also do online. So yeah, there was no problem with that.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Okay, now we have a quick question which I can answer. Is there a Buddhist temple for Thai people, such as me? I had a quick Google and I found that there is a place called the Lund Zen Center. It's not like a traditional temple, I think, but you're welcome to contact them. I don't know if anybody else in the room has any experience with this, but I will send you the link to the person who asked that question. Okay, next question. On the accommodation for non-EU, do you get to pick if you can have your own room or share? So I think it's correct that we don't have sharing accommodation in terms of rooms. Like you don't have to have a house, like a roommate. Whereas in like the US, for example, I know it's quite common that you share a dorm room with one or two more people. But I know that, of course, the standard thing is to have a corridor where you share a kitchen and a shared social area. So I know who spoke about this before. Would anyone like to add something about their experience living with lots of people? Or yeah, Megan?
Yeah, so I will preface this by saying I know that LU Accommodation is working on changing their system. So what me or Rij or Dicky experience may be a little bit different from what you're going to be having. But they give you the option to rank. So you rank your top 5 choices, and Lund University does have YouTube videos with tours of all of the accommodation. I watched those probably like 50 times each, so that I could choose what I wanted to rank beforehand. And just as Rebecca said, you do have the option to either choose a studio apartment, which is where I live. I live in Cloister Gordon Student House, so I have my own bathroom, my own kitchen. All of the LU accommodation comes fully furnished. Or if you want something that has a little bit more of a social life, like a shared living room and a shared cooking space, then you can choose corridor accommodation. There is no guarantee that whatever you choose for your first option will be what you get, but they do ask, what is your main preference? Do you care more about where you're placed in the city, or do you care more about what type of room you have, corridor or studio? So you do have the option to have like roommate. If you want to do a sort of apartment that has 2 bedrooms, you could do a corridor, you could do a studio. So thinking about that early on, but I will say, tends to be the more people that you live with, the more sharing you do, the cheaper the accommodation.
Yeah, exactly. I've just put the link to the housing page on the chat as well, in case anybody would like to check out those tours and all of those links also. Thank you very much. Someone has just made a comment. I've heard that there are a lot of thrift shops over there. I would say yes, that's true. I mean, I really like the ones that we have in Lund. There's a couple of really good ones. I think that, like, in general, it's maybe not as cheap as you would expect in some places, because they kind of curate it quite nicely, but it's definitely a lot cheaper than buying things new. So yeah, great one. Okay, the next one is, I'm aware that Sweden is an all-embracing country with top-notch inclusivity, but they are asking, I may like to ask, as a person of color, what is the probability or tendency that one might be exposed to racism, and what are the measures put in place to report such cases if one is exposed? So this is quite a difficult question. Anybody feel that they would like to answer this? Yes, Arij?
Again, these concerns are all understandable when you are moving to a country where you don't know much about the culture and how to tackle these kind of sensitive topics. However, I appreciate that during our orientation week in Lund University, there were a full seminar about discrimination, racism, and how you can handle that, and how can you be aware of you being in that situation. And also, Lund University gave us the resources of how we can deal with this and how we can report it as well. So just to highlight, here in Lund University, there is no tolerance for discrimination or racism, rather from a student or an employee here. So you have a lot of channels how to communicate that, and your concerns will be taken seriously. Moving on in the social life, for the time being, I have never faced that before, but I think having this support system and having the ability to speak to a lot of people, like, for example, your friends, your communities, the people you are volunteering with, and even your program coordinator can help you to find ways of how to deal with that, and to be aware that you are not alone. Even if you face such a situation, you can always have that channel to have the advice from.
Thank you so much, Arij. Okay, we have another question about faith. Is there any community at Lund for Christian students? So now we've had a few different questions relating to faith. I will place the link in the chat about faith and spirituality, where we have a list of the different chaplains and resources that are available for everybody there. I don't know of a specific student-run Christian community myself. I don't know if any of you guys are aware of one. No, but there may very well be one. I mean, we have so many societies that I would encourage everybody to check the associations page. I can also share this. But also, I would say that we do have, because there is a lot of diversity, even amongst the Christian faith in Sweden. So we do have a lot of different churches here. As I mentioned, the Swedish church is the sort of main one, and they are very open. I mean, they often have quite open sessions where anybody is welcome. It doesn't matter really your faith or which denomination of Christianity you belong to, for example. I would say that, like, for most people, they consider the Swedish church to be remarkably non-religious, considering that it's a church, actually. But we also have many other churches, so I'm sure that you can find something that that fits you and that allows you to have the community that you need. Barbara, I see that you raised your hand as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to point it out that even the main cathedral in Lund has a service in English, I think at least once a week. And there are, yeah, as you said, many different denominations. I had some friends who went to the Pentecostal church, and that is also in English. So yeah, there are a lot of options when it comes to Christian spirituality, even in English.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Now we have a question about sports. So this person has said, as an African, I love sports very much. Are there sports, for example, soccer societies that one can join in the university? Also, can I be studying while participating in sports? And what are some of the benefits that a student gets by participating in sports? Would anybody like to talk about this? I don't know if any of you are very involved. Yeah, Megan?
I myself am not a sporty person, but I have friends who are. As Rebecca mentioned before, most people do join a gym here. So you do have the option. I know like You're to Holland or Fitness 24/7 have student discounts. Those are quite popular and they offer a wide variety of classes. So yoga, pickleball, paddle, things like that. For sports that you're mentioning, there's a link that I'm sure Rebecca is probably putting in the chat as I speak with everything listed out. But we do have lots of options for football, soccer that you can pursue. There are volleyball clubs and things like that. I would say, at least from an American perspective, sports are a little bit different. It's more of an extracurricular. So it's not something necessarily that is affiliated with the university, something you do for fun. So there's no like sports scholarships or anything like that. But it is a great way to get to know people and to get your exercise in. So yeah, so go ahead and look at that link. There is a long list of all sorts of things that sports I didn't even know existed that they do have options for at Lund. And outside of that, lots of the groups like ESN, so the Erasmus Student Network, or EOS Cares, any of those, they do offer sports nights as well. So if you wanted to meet up, international mentors oftentimes have all sorts of things at the beginning of the year as well, if you want to do soccer or basketball or volleyball with them.
Great, thank you. Anna Reed, what would you like to add?
I love hiking, so I had a lot of opportunities to do hiking as well. And you can find a lot of Facebook groups and groups on Join app as well that celebrate different sports. Megan mentioned Erasmus. Erasmus has a running club as well. So if you join any kind of these clubs as well, you can celebrate the sports here in Lund.
Brilliant. Okay, we've got another couple of really good questions that I hope we can fit in. So one of them was what kind of accommodations and support is provided to students with disabilities? I don't know if any of you actually have direct experience with this, but I know that I can share the link to the support centre. So I will do that in a second. There is lots of support for students with disabilities, including things like having a reader or having extra time, these kinds of things that can help you depending on what the area is that you need support with. So I will share the link for you. Also, somebody has asked, can you briefly talk about health? What if I fall sick as an international student? I think that would be a really nice one for us to cover if we can before we finish. Does anybody wish to speak about this? No, okay. Yeah, Barbara?
Yeah, so if you get your personal number, as far as I know, you should be treated by the Swedish healthcare system just as any other Swede. So you get access to, in my opinion, very good quality healthcare here. Some people complain about waiting times, but I never had a problem with that personally. So I think it also depends on which health center you choose. And what I like particularly about the healthcare system here is that a lot of times when in my country you would go straight to the doctor, here you first meet with a nurse or a midwife, depending on what's your problem. And he or she can kind of look at your problem, and maybe you will find out that you don't even need to go to a doctor. So it's much cheaper, because when you go to a doctor, you have to pay a fee of, I think, 200 krona, which downside for me, because that's a bit too much for me personally. But yeah, so there is a cost when you see the doctor, but it's the standard cost that every Swede pays. So you are basically treated like a Swede. So I think that's really great. When you don't have your personal number and you are from the European Union, as I was in my first program, then it's pretty much very similar, because it's up to the doctor whether they will like make it free of charge for you, which most of the time they do. But I can speak for how it is when you don't have a personal number and you do a 1-year program and you're not from European country. That's the different situation. So maybe somebody else, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but I believe that because you are under our insurance as like students, then it should be always very straightforward to get treatment. I think that the only thing I would add is that if anyone, I can share the insurance page here, but then if anybody feels that they want extra insurance, they should also read the terms and conditions to make sure that they're comfortable with what we cover. But that's just the one thing I would say. I will add that page here. Now we have one last question open in the chat, and it's something where somebody has said, is there a class that impressed you the most from Lund, and can you recommend it? Well, maybe we won't do a specific class because all of you are studying different programs, and I don't know what programs people are interested in here. But what I would suggest is that perhaps we could end this session by sharing your favorite thing that you've experienced so far in in Sweden or at university, or one tip or advice that you have for the students who are listening today. Is that okay with everybody? Great. Okay, we will end with that. And I will also share some links in case anybody feels that they have more questions that they would like to ask. All of the students that you see here in front of you are available to chat to on our Unibuddy app, as well as many other students as well from different programs and different nationalities. And also, if something is relating to application queries or eligibility, you're welcome to contact us at the International Office and we will help you. So I will leave the contact links for both of those services in the chat now. So, okay, let's start. Let's do Arid, Megan, Barbara, Dicky. So either your favorite thing or a tip for the students that are listening.
So I think one of the highlights being here in Lund of how welcomed I felt during the first week or during the first month. So I talked a lot about the orientation week during this session, but it was really one of the best experiences I have ever been to, because we had a lot of seminars, activities, hikes, exploring Sweden, tasting the Swedish food, meeting our professors, being able to do a lot of friendships in the first starting weeks of the semester. So I think for now, because it's my first semester, it was the highlight of my experience. And I really, really appreciate that. One small tip I have for the students is there are a lot of informative resources online. The university website is very informative. The Unibuddy app has a lot of blog and vlogs. And you need to be prepared. And if you have any concerns or questions, just do the research and read, and you will find all of the answers online. And I appreciate that in the website of the university.
Thank you. And then Megan?
Yeah, I would say Lund is a very unique community. It's really easy to go toward bigger cities like Stockholm or Copenhagen or Gothenburg or Oslo. Lund is still large, but it's just small enough that you do see familiar faces every day. You get to know the community and the people who are serving you your coffee at Fika, and I've really enjoyed that. It's a great mixture of Swedes and international students, so no matter what, every day you're learning something new and really gaining a different perspective. I would shout out Arid and say, use Unibuddy. I used it a ton before I came. It's why I'm on the app now. All of us are volunteering to represent Lund because we love it here, and we are happy to answer any questions that you weren't able to get answered today.
Great. And now Barbara?
Yeah, I would say a tip. It's very simple. Just use the opportunities that Lund gives you. Because not every university does this. I feel the amount of like options for free time, but as well as like all the support for students when it comes to the skills and career services, which are super important. Just take use of it. And yeah, just good luck with your application.
Thank you so much. And then finally, Dicky?
Yes, I think my final words is, yeah, don't worry about your fears, the cold, the darkness, and making friends or facing academic challenges here in Lund. coming from far away from Indonesia and during a flight more than 16 hours, I can confidently say I've survived until today. So yeah, we are here to support each other. You'll find many friends to lend a hand, and the University Student Center is here to offer support also. So hope to see you all here next autumn.
That's brilliant. I just want to thank all of our guests here today, our student representatives. And as we've said many times, you're welcome to continue talking to them. You're welcome to contact us if you have any other questions. And as Dicky said, and Barbara, we really hope to see you in Lund, and we hope that you'll have a great experience with us. Please keep in touch with us, and best of luck with your application. Hopefully we see you all next year. Okay, thanks once again for attending today, and see you soon. Bye.